Yo, my man. I know you said you need a nap, but I know you're about to spit that hot fire today. My boy Jesse, how you doing?
Man, I'm tired as hell, but you could not pay me to complain. Like this is grind season because the times require it. How about you, my brother?
It's the same. Waking up early, going to sleep late, trying to text people in between meetings or doing a meeting while you're doing a meeting. I did two Zoom meetings at the same time today. So then I asked the question. They got on the council, started doing their thing. Bow, turn my screen off. Hopped on this one, handled that, asked the questions, and then I got the headphone in for this joint. And then I heard they asked something that was in my expertise. They were like, "Oh, well, we talked to our ERISA lawyer. They said we can't do this with a Roth conversion." Do. I'll hop smooth in. Actually, it's five different ways you could do that. Do we want to use a trust? Do we want to use a C corp? Do you want to do a backdoor measure? How do you want it done? Oh, I didn't know. And then bow, slid back over to the other side. It's like Ian said, no luxuries for the next 3 years. Because if you can lock in right now, man, the world is yours 4 years from now. Because 4 to 5 years from now, the the world is going to look so different than it does now. And we're about to get into some hot, actionable stuff in pre-production, y'all. He was dropping bars. I was like, brother, you got to stop. We got to hit record because the people need to hear this. So look, guys, I'm going to introduce us real quick. We're going to get our disclaimer and pop it in. But look, we're going to talk about some real actionable stuff here. And when you're growing and scaling your business, which is the number one asset class for creating wealth, it's not when people say real estate is what type of real estate? Real estate where other people rent it. And it was like, oh, so a business. Stocks. What are stocks? When you own a part of somebody else's business. It all comes back to business and being able to pull out enterprise value in real time to scale your numbers, to understand your SOPs, to have an SOP, to have the right type of communication with your employees, with your contractors, with your vendors. There is nobody better than my man, Jesse Bullock. He's the visionary and CEO and leading in charge of Bullseye Consulting. And he's about to hit y'all with that hot fuego today.
Man, and my man Earl. So, we do these introductions every week, but the piece about the tax side of growing business, all of the big brands that are in the S&P 500, those stocks that folks own a piece of those companies, you best believe they have very skilled and talented tax advisors within their sphere of influence that are proactively looking for the opportunities within the very vast U.S. tax code that governs the way that taxes are collected. To not have someone in your corner that actually is skilled in translating the jargon, the technical jargon that's found in the thousands and thousands of pages of the tax code to leverage it towards building generational wealth, there's nobody better than my man Earl. So you got to get with him. You feel me?
I appreciate you. So you can tell we're going to have some actionable information here. So I'm going to go ahead and hop into this disclaimer. So look, guys, the information we're giving you is for educational and entertainment purposes. We highly, highly encourage you to work with licensed professionals, bonded in cases where needed be, with a track record of success. We also encourage you to do your own research, because as you learn more, each one, reach one, teach one, because that's how we learn and grow as a community. So guys, we're talking about some hot fire. I'm the managing partner of Tax Erasers, and look, Jesse is out here plotting. He's plotting big wealth moves. We just had the punchline. One of our mentors says no luxury spending for the next 3 years. And he also said if he sees you talking about some luxury watch, a luxury car, you're out of the circle. He's not doing business with you anymore. And to frame this, he had millions and millions of dollars in like 2011 when nobody knew who he was. So if he's moving that way, we see Drake dropping 3 albums. We see Wale came out with a new album. I see, Richard Branson's doing stuff. I see Microsoft making moves. I see Bill Gates making moves. There's either one or two things that are true. Either things are going to skyrocket even higher, or there's a possibility of a catastrophic setback, which also means it's an amazing opportunity for you.
So that setback to get back, I believe, is what you were alluding to. And with all of the things that we've been talking about on this here platform for months now, last year during InvestFest, Magic Johnson said, you got 3 years to get your shit together. Well, a year has already passed, which leaves about 2 more years left. Well, it's been about a year, not a full year yet, but about a year, which leaves about 2 years remaining to get your shit together. And, that mentor that you were alluding to, Ian Dunlap, facts. Like, these ain't the times to be out stunting, trying to show off. And nah, these are the times to be calculated and intentional. So how this whole string of conversation started was, I'm out here in North Carolina for a engagement. That's where my client's business is located. And you were mentioning, Earl, how when you look back in your memories on socials, pretty much for the past few years during this time, you've been in Carolina. And like, share that story on the housing market then in comparison to now, just to illustrate the point of how assets have been kind of appreciating over time.
Man, we're going to talk about this L that I took, because it takes 2 L's to make a W. You flip it over and you get an M. So we're going to keep it rocking. Look, guys, I was looking at properties up and down North Carolina and South Carolina in 2020. We're talking about 5 bedrooms, big balcony, hot tub, jacuzzi on the beach for $175,000, $200,000. And then I'm sitting here trying to become the Einstein on it. And I'm trying to, it's like the opportunity made sense. The cost made sense. Even hiring a managing company, someone to clean it, and then flying back and forth just to check on the property here and there. It all made sense. It's like, man, I think there's a good chance this area is going to go up $100,000 in the next 2 years. I was wrong. That exact same house, it's $540,000 now. I looked at it yesterday. So I missed out on almost half a ticket, $400,000, just because I didn't take action. And one of the things that I love to say is that, now is no opportunities wasted. So I'm like, let's do this now. When I meet up with business owners, they're like, oh, can we do a meeting next Tuesday, next Wednesday? I'm like, what are you doing in the next 12 minutes? Why can't we do this meeting right now? I got the time. Do you have the time for your dream? Or do you just want to talk about it and look like you're doing things when we're trying to get stuff done? You told me your tax liability is killing you. You told me that your financial advisor does not know what he's doing, and you've been hustling backwards. And he just told you this year to put another $70,000 in a 401k that you don't even believe in. So do you have time for you? Do you deserve my time? So it's like that shift comes from missing out on opportunities like this. That shift comes from missing out on Bitcoin in 2011 when we had Bitcoin classes at my college. and I'm starting to learn about it just a little bit, but I say, nah, I only invest in things that I understand. That's a Warren Buffett quote. The part that we're missing is that you should be working to understand more every single day.
100%, 100%. And as I think about what my journey has been, I would be lying to say that years past, I fully understood how assets play into wealth generation. You know, I understood it at like a face surface level type of, but as I've immersed myself more and more into business, and to your point, you know, everything circles back to business in one form or fashion. And the more that I've invested into truly understanding the intricacies of business, it's given me so much clarity as to how wealth is really generated through various assets. Because a business gives you the ability to move lateral into real estate or lateral into owning another piece, owning a piece of a larger company, right? Like, but having your own business that you're intentionally engineering value into it is, you know, it's the cheat code. So as I think about the current state of affairs, and, you know, we've been talking about how all of the factors that go into a potential economic downturn, because it's hard for me to maintain the optimism that everything is just going to be all right with all of the things that have been happening. And I'm generally a glass half full type of dude.
Right.
I'm also grounded in reality. And I believe my lying eyes. You know, these folks want you to not believe your lying eyes. My eyes ain't lying to me, bro. Yeah, like these motherfuckers lying to me. These people that are talking about, you know, is nothing to worry about. Like I don't know how they arrived at that with all of the things that have been happening. Like either oil is being pumped, sold and shipped, or it's not. It's not. So
not for America. Now there's another country that's cleaning up right now. They're called China. China's cleaning up right now. They're forcing people to pay in yuan, which is the Chinese currency. They're allowing Chinese ships to get through and take that oil to places like, I don't know, Cuba, Russia, all these different places that we have been sanctioning. We also see Russia getting stronger because we had to remove some of their sanctions. So it's a wild situation where I watch Mr. Rubio get on television and say, our goal is to get the Strait back open and the agreement back in place. It's like, so you want to take things back to the way it was before you wasted a bunch of money and a bunch of children died? That's your goal? It's blasphemous. It's asinine, and it really makes me think about this quote that keeps circulating between those guys. First, we had people talking about it with CK. We've heard it directly from our current president. We heard it from Kristi Noem. We heard it 2 or 3 days ago from Mr. Rubio, where they are chastising empathy as a sign of weakness. J.D. Vance, Pete Hegseth, you know, the problem with Western civilization is that we're tied up in empathy. That's what makes us weak, and that's what makes us inefficient. And I just could not be any further on the other side, because you should have empathy for all, sympathy for damn near nobody. Now, just because I empathize with you and your situation and what you're going through does not necessarily mean that we need to shift policies or procedures to curry you in your situation. Sometimes that's exactly what we need to do, but it's situation to situation. Just cutting off the idea of being connected to your fellow man is the farthest range away from leadership I can think of. Leadership to me has always been grounded in servitude. To serve is to lead. And for those that feel like they sit too highly to serve the masses, leadership is as far out of reach as the stars are to man. That's a quote that I used to read every day. But somehow our leadership has got it twisted. And I say leadership just because they're appointed there, not because they are portraying any inkling of what a leader is. Jesse, with all this being said, if we are looking at the United States as a business with your expertise in consulting and business coaching, what do you think would be the first change you would make to right this ship, or at least chart a course? Because it's a big ship and we just can't turn it on a dime.
Fire Congress. Like it starts there. All of the financial negligence and irresponsibility stems from Congress. Congress controls the purse. So, we can't increase taxes and fix the problems that we have. That's not going. It's the equivalent of like giving more money to someone that embezzles. You know what I mean? Like they're gonna
If you
take.
could give them another 10 million, you could be honest this time.
Like it doesn't.
I
It
agree with
doesn't.
you.
It doesn't make sense. So, like with Congress in place, the way that it is, they haven't produced a balanced budget in how long? Like there's been a $2 trillion deficit for a very long time. So, like as a nation, the folks that are responsible not only for drafting the budget, but actually implementing, executing said budget, and having any form of discipline to that budget, that's all Congress. And they suck. They have sucked. And I don't care what anybody's political leanings are. Across the board, both parties are two wings on the same bird. They're garbage. So that would be point one. Because when I'm first engaging with a business owner, before we even start talking about anything that's going on in their business, because that's all emotional shit. They're going to tell me how great that things are, regardless of how terrible that they are. They're going to speak positively about what they've built in most instances. Or they're going to try to sugarcoat and mask the ugliness. So before we even before we even have a conversation, let me see them financial reports, because that's going to tell me what has been going on in the business. And when we look at our financial reports as a nation, our balance sheet, if you will, the shit been upside down for a very long time. We've been spending more than we bring in for a long time, because there are certain factors that have enabled that. The petrodollar and having the military capabilities that we have, and these different things have created a space for us to abuse our position in the world. And at some point, those chickens were always going to come home to roost at some point in time. And again, it all starts with Congress. because they are the ones that are responsible for what those financial reports say. And they receive all of the information that ties the story of how those numbers are generated. Like they receive all of the details. And whoever that they need to talk to, they have subpoena authority to haul them in and grill them. They don't, outside of making political points. They don't do any of that. The primary companies that are responsible for big portions of the U.S. economy, based on the amount of people that they employ, that then send payroll taxes to the government, that because they're not sending taxes to the government the way that the common person is, but they are creating a tax base through the folks that they employ. All of these things tie back to the same central problem: Congress. So that's where I would begin.
That's really powerful. And you put it in a space that very few do, because a lot of people would say our jurors of the Supreme Court set the culture, and then others would say, no, it's the administrative branch, but it all comes down to Congress at the end of the day. And I think that's a perfect segue into, the portion I want to talk about today with retirement plans, because that's completely controlled by Congress. And boy, oh boy, are there a lot of changes. I had to throw the glasses back on. Look, man, the Secure Act, it's something almost no one understands, including financial advisors, people to Series 6, 65, 63, 22, 7, and SIE. They still barely understand it. What do you think an employer of a large call center, how well do you think their HR is going to understand if these guys don't? So I wanted to make sure to talk about a few of the different changes here that are happening, so we can make sure people are making the best decisions for themselves. As we always say on this podcast, informed people make great decisions for themselves. So first of all, SECURE stands for setting every community up for retirement. Most people don't know that. They got whoever works in the initialism department is cold with it, because they be coming up with some stuff. So with that, there are some major changes, and it really does affect business owners. One of those big changes would be if the plan that you currently have allows it, depending on which brokerage account you go for your employee benefits, to be able to do things such as a 401k. Most employers, if you have a big enough business, you're making contributions into those accounts for 401k. Why are you doing that? There are some tax benefits for you, but also having the best talent in your business is one of the most intelligent ways to fortify your business. You got to let smart, intelligent people do smart, intelligent things. And to get that sort of talent to stay there and to perform how they want to, you got to give them certain benefits, certain leeways, certain freedoms, all the kind of stuff that Jesse sets up to make sure your business is running the right way. Now, here's the change. Now, there are so many people that have a crazy amount of debt because of this little thing called college, these crazy student loan debts, that employers can make their contribution to pay off that student loan debt. So instead of it going into your 401k, it can go directly against your student loan debt. Have you ever heard of that before, Jesse?
Mm-mm.
No, it's wild. And then beyond that, employers, if the plan allows, this is my disclaimer, and it should allow, we're in Colorado, so I'm in Colorado. He's in North Carolina today. we have a lot of Fidelity accounts. A lot of businesses go with Fidelity. And when you have a broker like Fidelity, they allow that space for a Roth portion of your account. Because remember, a 401k is a defined benefit plan that is tax deferred. That means the money goes straight from your paycheck straight into the retirement account. Now, it's okay to have a little bit of money there. You don't want to have too much money there because when you go to retire, guess what? You never pay taxes on that money. And there's something called RMDs, required minimum distributions. That's Uncle Sam saying, hey, fool, I let you play with that money. You know what I'm saying? You didn't give me my piece early enough. So now I'm going to take a 50% tax every single year until I get my piece. That's what an RMD is. So we have multiple crises stacked on top of each other where we have a student loan crisis and we have a retirement crisis. So now your employer will allow you to put a certain percentage into the Roth part of your 401k. So technically it is not a Roth 401k because that's a whole different product, but you have a Roth portion in your traditional 401k tied to your job. So that's a great way to be able to put money away. And when you get to pull that money out, it's tax free. For all my Southern folks, most of the time when I'm doing education, I just ask them, would you rather pay money on the seed or the harvest? They go, the seed, baby. Why? Why the seed? You never know how big the harvest could be. And if I'm any good at my job, the harvest should be big. Boom. Case in point. Another big one, and this one is not gendered at all, so take it for what it is. But if you are a survivor of domestic violence, you can pull up to $10,000 or 50% of your account tax-free to habituate yourself. It is really, really unfortunate, and I hope it never happens to anyone that's listening here or any of your family members, colleagues. I hope you never have to go through that. But if you do go through domestic violence and you need to situate yourself, you're able to call the IRS and let them know, I'm using my one-time withdrawal and you can pull $10,000 tax-free. There are no reports that need to be placed in. There's no police reporting. So it's just your word. And they'll let you take that 10 grand tax-free that you do not have to pay back. So it's kind of unfortunate, man, that, this is happening so often that we have these provisions, but this is exactly what the tax code is. It's an incentive system. The government saying we want you to be able to do certain things so we don't have to fill that void. A lot of times people ask me, how come there are so many tax breaks for real estate investing? It's like, well, do you think the government wants to provide all the structure around the United States, both commercial and residential? No. So then what are they doing? They're incentivizing you to spend your dollars in those sorts of projects and those sorts of professions so you can build the infrastructure that the United States needs. So those are some of the most basic ones. The catch-up provision is probably the craziest one because I got people call me about this every day. And they call like they found out, their cousin just hit the lottery. They're like, Earl, is it true about this catch-up provision that I can put it in my Roth? I'm like, that's the only way you can do it. So if you're over 50 years old, there's an extra $7,000, $7,500 that you can put towards your retirement every single year so you can catch up. For my high earners that are over $135,000, it has to go into a Roth. And that's a new thing. And the crazy part is some of these brokerages don't even have the infrastructure to do that yet. So the law says it's the only way to go, but their software might be like, and they can't do it. And they're like, well, if you can't do it Roth, you can't do it at all because you'd be breaking the law with IRS codes. So we have so much. That's one of the fun parts about being a tax strategist. I'll bring something to someone. They're like, I've never heard of that. It's like, When have you heard of any of this? Come on. Do you want to play ball or not? So I wanted to make sure that we talked about that so you guys can understand it, to not be afraid of it, to move more money to tax-free. Because guys, we were just talking about the national debt. We're just talking about the Strait of Hormuz. Many people are talking about this is the first time in their life they've ever paid over $5 for a gallon of gas because they don't live in California, New Jersey, or New York. Paying $5 for gas. Here's what I want you guys to realize. The national debt is growing at over $5 million per minute. The only way to pay off that national debt, as we've said many times here on this podcast, is A, our people in power are going to get really good with budgets. They're not going to make their sons multimillionaires and billionaires, and they're going to use the money in a responsible way. Or B, they can tax you more. We both know it's not one, it's the two. So if they increase taxes and you're in a 24% tax bracket right now, and they raise it to 58% in the future, because that's what they need for the United States to not be bankrupt, what are you going to do if all your money is tax deferred and now you're paying double the tax on the harvest when you could have been paying more, could have paid tax on the seed and let it compound tax free? So we want to get people out of these incarcerated funds. That's what we call it at my firm. It's money jail. When you have a 401k, it is very, very hard to get liquid. It is very hard to change your exposure ratios of where that money goes. It is very hard to use that money to make money unless it's a portion into real estate versus these other options, Roth IRA, cash value life insurance, Coverdell plan, captive insurance, some of these really cool trust balance accounts. It's free game. You just ball. You're on a rant like Durant, no pick, no assist. You could just play ball. So I want to make sure that we put you guys in a position to take the information so that you can change your situation. So Jesse, I know it's a lot cooking right now. You kick back, but you are always thinking 2, 3, 4, and 5 steps ahead. As you are growing your business while growing other businesses, which is crazy. Let's acknowledge it. That's crazy. Over the next 120 days, what are the most important things for you and Bullseye Consulting going forward and growing the brand and growing your authority to help businesses?
Getting my team really dialed in, because I have my capacity as an individual, but and what I mean by that is when I'm performing tasks that are below my pay grade, it directly endangers the growth and sustainability of my company. So dialing in my team to, without direct direction, meaning like I'm telling you to do this right now and to do that, and because they understand the process and how it all ties together. Like that is my top priority, not only over the next 120 days, but for the foreseeable future. Because again, I can only do so much as one individual. So it is important that I am able to allocate my time towards the most value driving activities that fall up under my umbrella and my sphere of influence. So building that team. But I want to go back to 2 points that you made while you were speaking. The first, the $5 a gallon gas. Bruh, I've been mooching off of the corporate sponsored nomadic lifestyle since April.
Yeah.
Which means that I'm always in a rental car and my fuel is covered. Like I don't got to pay. So this weekend was the first weekend because I stayed here in Carolina over the weekend instead of coming back to Colorado. And while I'm here, golly, excuse me.
Yeah, no problem, brother. I know the pollen is thick out there.
Yeah. And while out here for the weekend, I did a quick turn and burn to Atlanta to pick up some stuff out of my storage unit. That was the first time that I actually had to put gas in a car since the beginning of last month. So I had my first experience with $4, $20, $4.20 gas, which I hadn't, because again, like the airfare, the rental cars, the gas, the per diem, all of that stuff, I get paid all of that stuff on top of my compensation. So, bruh, this is nothing about it is sustainable from a societal perspective. I listened to Scott Galloway, who he makes some really good points a lot of times. And, talking about the job market, back in 2022, they told us that we were not in a recession because the unemployment rate is the lowest in modern history. Well, what Scott Galloway is talking about is, people not having a job is not necessarily what's going to trigger a violent revolution. What triggers a violent revolution is when people are picking up that extra shift, taking on another job or two, spending more time working. And when it's all said and done, they got more month left at the end of their check than they can handle. When you working harder, spending more time, and you still can't afford to live, that vacation that you used to taking, you can't take it because the money that would have otherwise been available for that trip is now going into your gas tank, is now going into the increase in inflation because it requires energy to produce things, which in turn causes prices to go up, or people are paying more for healthcare because of the things that have been signed into law with the big bill. I'm not going to call it beautiful. Nothing about it was beautiful. There's only so much that people are going to be able to take before, we talking about a different kind of thing, because the scales of desperation are getting out of hand disproportionately. So the second piece that really jumped out to me in what you were saying, you referenced harvesting like 2 or 3 times. When it comes to building business, there is no business without sales. If you're not generating, nurturing, and converting leads into sales and collecting that revenue, you don't have a business. So when it comes to the art of consistently generating, nurturing, and converting leads, there's a 3-strategy approach that can kind of lay the framework for that to happen. So from a sales perspective, it's valuable for entrepreneurs to think about their lead generating activities in the context of if they prefer to farm, fish, or hunt. And what that breaks down to is when you talk about farming, in order to harvest through a farm, you got to have a combination of things working in your favor. The fertilizer, you got to have quality fertilizer that does what it does. You got to have the right seeds for it to do what it does. Got to have the right weather conditions for all of that to kind of come together.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to be able to water all of that, which kind of ties into the weather, but even bigger, like you got to be able to nourish that harvest in order for it to produce. The thing about harvesting through farming, though, is once you have that formula down, it's going to keep on producing throughout the season.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like the farming approach. Then you got the fishing approach, where the fishing approach is we're dropping our line in the water and we are just hoping that we got the right bait to lure that fish in and for the fish to actually stay on the hook and not jump off once they get the bait, which requires you kind of just sitting and waiting for the fish to bite. Where then you got the hunt, where you are going out and you are actually targeting your next meal. You are intentionally pursuing your next meal through that hunt. How that analogy ties back to sales strategy is when it comes to the farming side of things, all of the things that are happening on social media that a brand is, the activities that a brand are engaging in order to build the lead nurturing process, that's a part of that farm. Because if we think about our own human behaviors before we spend money in checking out websites, checking out Google reviews, checking social media, asking a friend, all of this due diligence that happens before we make the decision to actually spend money, that comes from the farming side of things, how the business has invested to create that harvest, that once somebody comes into the door and they're, they're going to convert into a customer from all of that groundwork that's been established. When we're talking about fishing, when we just leaving the bait out there and hoping that it lures the fish in, well, when we have the farm established already and we're using the bait to bring folks in, even if they don't hop on the hook, we got the farm nurturing, harvesting our next meal in real time. Even if it's that fish getting more enticed to hop on the hook. Same on the hunting side. A hunter can shoot their next meal. That don't mean that they actually gonna take it out. That animal can still survive. So again, having that farming harvest going, incredibly invaluable. So tying that again to actionable strategy, having a combination of all three from a framework perspective, so that as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, you're continuing to attract your next lead. And once you attract them, you have the framework in place to nurture and convert them into a customer, which gives the business the ability to continue to grow because we're constantly generating new business. With all of that being said, Earl, when you think about your next 120 days, you know I'm gonna flip that right back to you. What priorities do you have as the visionary and managing partner for Tax Erasers? What does the next 120 days in priorities look like for you?
It is a massive increase in action because we've created systems and we have been going through the due diligence of finding out the numbers of which clients actually make money for us. Because as you know, they may not know, but as you know so well, all business ain't good business. And we've had clients already over the very short span of 2 years where they're taking large bids, they're doing these large projects because they want to say they got this amount of revenue. And then when you really look at the numbers, they're losing money on the job. You got to stick, you're chasing waterfalls, but you were making a cash cow. You were killing it with sprinklers. And it's just the ego got in the way. So we have definitely shifted our approach into what is the most profitable type of client for us. And now that we have that figured out, we're about to turn up the volume times 10. And we have our infrastructure and framework where people are going to be, we're going to be able to farm. We're going to be able to nourish those relationships where people are going to know us, like us, and trust us before they even hop on the phone. So I think that's the biggest thing in the next 120 days upon, my co-authored book with tax attorney Ed Lyon. That's going to be something that I'm using internally for all my different clients and for my strategic partners. So I'm really, really excited to be able to start handing those things out like Nino Brown was handing out turkeys. So that's what we're doing on the tax eraser side, and on the personal side, dialing in those last little things that I need so I can make 2 acquisitions this year. Because that is the goal, to purchase 2 cash flowing businesses in a certain sector that I love. I highly encourage people to start learning about it. Whether you start off with a book like Main Street Millionaire by Cody Sanchez, if you start off with some of Carl Allen's stuff, there are so many great people in the M&A space right now. Mogul Life is doing things for the Black community in like Alabama, Georgia, and whatnot. Having control of a cash flowing business is one of the fastest ways to wealth. Jesse and I talk about it every single time we see each other, and we just grinning like idiots because, like, bro, once we start purchasing 2, 3, 5, whatever the number is, businesses per year, and then we know that he's going to extrapolate the enterprise value out of each of those businesses. And then as it grows, we know we're never going to have a tax liability problem because we're going to have those structures in there. The estate planning is there, and also the right corporate compensation and our own retirement and compensation. For us to have all that and the funding piece, it is getting crazy. And I feel like the SBA wants us to win because today they doubled the limit. I don't know if you saw that in the news, but SBA 7A loan, that is probably the most popular loan to be able to procure cash flowing real estate, a business, or a traditional business in any way, shape, or form. We have so many baby boomers retiring right now in the M&A world. They call it the silver tsunami because it's a lot of gray hair riding the wave out. Guys, it just got twice as easy to be able to go out and procure a $10 million business. You only need to put 10% down to do that. That's insane. That's people are like, well, that's $1 million. I didn't say it had to be your money. It could be an investor. It could be partners. You could reach out to us at Tax Erasers and we can get you a credit stack and maybe get you 300,000 of that and then help you negotiate another $700,000 from the seller, which could be a note. Guys, a piece of paper holds worth. Like, not only the Federal Reserve makes currency, business owners make currency, business owners make bonds. So that's what I'm excited about, to really shift things. And as I've said many times here, to just procure these different acquisitions, and then each cash flowing business, my salary that's coming from there, you think it's going on rims and Jezebels? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Every single cash flowing business is going to buy a specific asset that I believe in. Whether it's this one is buying real estate in Ghana, this one's buying real estate in the UAE, this one right here buys gold and silver in physical form in US currency so I can sell with no capital gains. This one buys, can't even tell y'all about that asset. Y'all can't know about that one yet. So that's what I'm really excited about over the next 120 days. And then my protege, Jason, I think this month he's going to clear $120,000 in the business. That is amazing. 2.5 years ago, I really had to push him to go out and get his licenses. Last year, he made $103,000 his first year in business. Now he's about to have his first $100,000 month in business. That is absolutely bananas. Also, if you guys are financial professionals and you were looking for a way to make real money, because I know I'm not hating on y'all, I love y'all. Let me say that first, but I know a lot of real estate brokers and mortgage lenders where everything looks all gravy on Facebook, but we sit down and look at your financials and you're going backwards. Reach out, build some wealth together. So with that little Bob Barker commercial I just went on, where do you see some of the greatest opportunities that are going to be coming for our listeners over the next couple years? So it doesn't even need to be the next 120 days. Where are the greatest opportunities going to come for them? I know, as I'm thinking about it, it's for them to get off their butt and start a business. Where, from Jesse's point of view, how are you looking at it? What do people need to do?
I ain't even finna cap. I am salivating at the reality that you just spoke to, which is the amount of baby boomers that are sick and tired of owning low return jobs. And what I mean by low return is they're cash flowing, but their quality of life, there is no balance. And there hasn't been balance for years. They have been operating little mini slave plantations and they tired of it, but they ain't got nobody to leave the business to, because everybody that they care about, that cares about them, has been watching them for years own a little mini plantation. And if I've been watching you slave and whore yourself out for years, why the hell, with any good sense, would I want to sign myself up for that? So these baby boomers, again, they are tired of owning the job. And it's a whole bunch of them. Cash flowing businesses.
People, I don't know if y'all understood, he really just gave you so much game. The number one question I get when I tell someone they need to start buying businesses, the first statement is, I don't have the money to buy the business. I said, who said it takes your money? Well, I've never ran a business before. Who says you need to run the business? I said, you need to own a business. And they're looking at me like, what? Look, this is why we call this a dry powder situation. There are 10 to 14 million businesses that are going to be shifting hands over the next 10 years because baby boomers are retiring for health reasons. It's a divorce. Maybe they're dissolving a partnership. Maybe they're just ready to kick up their feet and they didn't have Jesse as their business consultant to have systems to allow them to do that while owning a business. So in their mind, the only way they can do that is to get out of the business. So it puts you in a very unique situation. So the second question I get the most often is, why doesn't private equity just buy it up? Why doesn't BlackRock just buy it? They own everything, bro. BlackRock. Okay. For BlackRock to buy these businesses that are $12 million and less, they would have to buy over 1,000 every single year just to move the needle a little bit for their clients. Does that make sense for a multi-trillion-dollar holding entity? Absolutely not. Who's going to do the accounting for those 1,000 entities? And then the forensic accounting that goes on inside of it. And then the tax accordance inside of that. And then you have to have someone doing that for the outer groups of different businesses. When can they become a roll-up? When should they exit? The amount of money that they would spend just trying to count the money. And I know it sounds wild to say, but it would cost them too much money to make that little of money. So what does that mean? There is a huge gap out there with businesses between 500,000 and about $12 million where private equity can't come down to buy it. Their son and daughter don't want it. Wife sure doesn't want it. She's seen their husband gain 40 pounds and lose his hair running the business. She don't want it. So this is how we create opportunities for ourselves to reach out to these businesses professionally in a knowledgeable way where we do some creative finance. Why are you selling the business? Well, I'm ready to retire and hang my feet up. My back's jacked up. And if I don't do it now, I'm not going to be able to have my wife anymore. And the way I look, I'm not going to be able to get a new wife either. Okay, I understand. So your main goal is to have consistent income to cover your lifestyle. Yes. You have this priced at $6 million. Why'd you do that? Well, I talked to my financial advisor at Edward Jones, and he told me I needed X amount of money to live how I wanted to live. Okay, I understand that. And how long have you been building this business? 30 years. You've done a great job building this. I'm a fan of you. But I got to be real with you. Just because you need this amount of money to live does not mean I'm willing to pay that, because you want the huge lump sum, you want this money, and you want the lifestyle. Where do I win in that deal? Because I have to win in this too. And he's going to look at you like, I hear what you're saying. Tell you what, I will give you the price that you want plus another 500,000. So I'll give you 6.5 million, but I'm not going to give you $6.5 million today. What we'll do is we'll seller finance this. You're going to help me transition over the next 2 years. And then we're going to make sure this thing is running mean and lean and that we can scale it up successfully so I can make monthly payments to you from the business every single month over the next 15 years. By the way, that's going to help you out with your taxes. Because if I gave you 6.5 million today, you're paying 2 million in taxes tomorrow. And they're like, okay. And then that's a seller finance, creative finance deal we did right there, where of course you're going to get into the nuance of the numbers, but that's really the conversation that you're having. Notice I didn't have to go into, I'm the managing partner of Tax Erasers, and I did this and this and this and this, and I did this for the last 10 years. It is talking to a person hearing them, what is their problem, and then giving them the creative solution that makes sense to them. Wow, you're right. If I took all that money at once, I'm going to get a big tax bill, and maybe I only get $4 million. So if it's $4 million and they're paying like 1.5 million in taxes, then he's only netting 3 million. Let's give him the whole 6.5 million so he has enough for his lifestyle, tax liability, and guess what? That mug is highly invested in you being successful because he doesn't get to run around Maui with his wife if the business is not successful. Now, if you're Jesse, you want a shorter, you're like, okay, I see how y'all do things. All right, peace out, bro. If you're me, I want you to be there so we transition through until I can get my team, until I can get some of Jesse's trained consultants to run the company for me. But I want you guys to understand that these conversations are that simple. It's not crazy.
It just requires intentionality, point blank and period. So, yeah, I'm with all of the kind of doom and gloom that I see in the immediate, well, immediate is subjective, but 3 years, a 2-year timeline, that's the immediate for me. The turmoil that I see happening in the economy, the thing that gives me peace and serenity is I know what to do with these situations. Like this environment that we're in, I know what to do. So as long as the world don't end, like long as we ain't on some nuclear type shit or, whatever, like I'm getting ready to go crazy. Because like when you see what's coming, you can prepare for it. And that's what I'm doing. I know that's what you're doing. And our classmates that are taking note, I'm not here to tell nobody what they should or should not be doing, but it's a fool's errand to see all of the things going on right now and to continue to do what you've always been doing. Like, that's just, I don't see it. It don't make sense. You mentioned it earlier in the program. The people that have made a whole lot of money over the course of their professional careers are working double and triple time right now, putting in a lot of work. They ain't putting in all that work for no reason. Like, I find it very hard to believe that they are not doing what they've always done. They are stepping it up to a whole new level, and they live a life to a degree of wealth that most couldn't even imagine. And they are in high gear. So to be sitting back, cool with your $100,000 salary or whatever that you've always had, fool's errand. Like,
bro, you kicking that. Like people that were cool with their $150,000 salary in 2006, you were eating. You were eating because that 150,000 in 2006 is almost equivalent to $400,000 now. But you stayed at 150. And now that 150 is worth like 68, maybe 70. I mean, if you live in small town Iowa, that 150 is pretty close to 150. But if you're living anywhere metropolitan, a bigger municipality, nah, that's not how it's going. So look, I want to make sure that none of that passed on you guys, as we start to bring this thing in for a landing. It takes intentionality. Guys, stay ready so you don't have to get ready. And it's almost a proverb that someone, oh my gosh, how does it go? It's almost, proverbial, where you get that tap on your shoulder from the universe. How unfortunate would it be for you to be unprepared for your special moment? Ugh, that feels like a punch to my gut when I think about it. To get the opportunity of a lifetime, but I can't capitalize on it in the lifetime of the opportunity.
Mm.
Shameful. So y'all, this has been the asset class. My man Jesse.
My man Earl. This has been the Asset Class. Thank you for listening.